Good afternoon, everybody. Well, the reason for the delay is we are missing a panelist
On her way.
who is on her way virtually, which is it.
Physically.
Well, there's an argument. Okay, you hear the chaos that's going on, but that's why our visiting professor from the Harvard Kennedy School complains that we start our events 10 minutes after. He said this is the most ridiculous convention you ever heard. And I told him, no, we do it because we create flexibility for unforeseen events. And there you go, for somebody who can't find their way. This is a great panel call on Bruce's new book, Bruce Schneyer's new book called Rewiring Democracy. It's really, I see you nodding your head, it's a really wonderful book, which I've read from cover to cover. And there is so much in this book. I don't know how the three of you are going to have a conversation, Ron, because there's so much to pull out and think about. The title itself is wonderful because so much of democratic habit and practice now takes place online, and so much of that habit and practice is interfered with online. So understanding the wiring of the system is absolutely critical to thinking hard about our future democracies. And Bruce's book is really unique from this perspective. So let me just tell you, first of all, that it's on sale in the other room. And after the talk, if you haven't bought it, if you're a student or a faculty member or anybody else, this is a wonderful holiday present to people.
They come in 6-packs.
Yeah, they come in 6-packs, exactly. So I don't think the two who are up front need any introduction to all of you. We're very fortunate to have Bruce Schneier with us as a visiting scholar at the Monk School this year. Bruce is normally at the Harvard Kennedy School. He's written 14 books. The one I like probably the best, Bruce, before this one, was A Hacker's Mind, because I met Ron Diebert very early in my career. And I was convinced that Ron had a hacker's mind, and that's how he could understand how people could hack in. And Ron was so ingenious in using that for legal purposes.
I hacked my way into a job.
You hacked your way into a job here, exactly. And so this is a wonderful pairing that we have here. Bruce has, you can read about him on the cover of the book, but he is, I think the best way to describe what he does, he's a fellow at the Berkman Klein Center for the Study of the Internet, which is one of the earliest centers. Ron has also had a long-standing relationship with them and worked with them at Harvard. And Bruce teaches public policy at the Kennedy School. So how lucky are we to have you here, Bruce? And I just gave him a deadline, a very formal tone of voice, that he has to tell us next year by January 15th, which is his birthday, whether he's going to spend another year with us or not. So we're going to vote with our feet here, okay? Ron Diebert, how to describe Ron Diebert? One of my closest friends at the Monk School, known him forever. And he's right, I interviewed him. I was on the interview committee for his first job. And I listened to him and I thought, oh, wow, this guy has a spark. He doesn't think in a conventional way. He's going to do great work. And Ron has more than exceeded my expectations. More than exceeded my expectations. One of the best bets I ever made was on Ron Diebert. I think everybody knows he's the founder of the Citizen Lab at Monk School. And to be serious for a moment, Ron comes at this from a deeply democratic perspective. he comes at it from a citizen perspective. And in his line of sight are governments who violate citizens' rights, corporations who violate citizens' rights. And Ron now has built the Citizen Lab, I think, into the world leading center that looks at technology from a citizen perspective. But what's really great about Ron is he is flooded with foundation money now, flooded. So all you students who need support, you know where to go, right? You just come to him and he can meet your expectations as well as mine. But what's really great is to watch Ron navigate with integrity all the time. The funding that he takes, he's scrupulous, and he's never, there's just the integrity is just wired into the DNA with Ron. So we're so lucky to have you here. There's going to be a conversation between the two of them about this wonderful book called Rewiring Democracy. Beth Coleman will be here, either in person or online.
She'll be here in person. She thought it was online. She's on campus. She's on her way.
Whenever it
We will
happens,
start.
it's going to happen. She is an associate professor of data and cities. So you can see the connection here. And she runs the city as a platform lab. She also works at the intersection of science and technology studies and social science as well. She's the author of, and you're gonna love this title, Hello Avatar. You ever waved at yourself online? Hello Avatar. And she's written multiple articles and really with a focus on race and racist technology, which is an underexplored dimension generally in the field of technology studies and very, very important. Currently at the U of T, she's a founding member of the Trusted Data Sharing Group. And Ron, you can get Bruce going on trust too in this conversation, and Beth. And she's the incoming research lead on AI policy and practice at the Schwartz-Reisman Institute. So we're in for a great time. I'm going to leave it to the two of you as and we're going to manage this. It'll be informal, but there will be questions from this group. Okay.
Thanks, Janice. Okay, over to you, Bruce.
All right, so I guess I'm going to start. So I wrote a book because I had stuff to say. And I wrote a book about democracy and technology, specifically about AI. And here comes Beth. Come on in, sit down. We just introduced you, said nice things. I just started.
Perfect timing.
Hi.
So I'm really trying to write about how this technology is affecting democracy very broadly. And I think of democracy in broad terms. So the book is divided into 5 parts. I look at AI and politics, how it will affect people getting elected, AI and lawmaking, the process of writing, debating, and passing laws, how legislators will use the technology. Third, I write about AI and government administration, all the different ways that the technology will be used to deliver services, to do the things of government. And there are all sorts of uses. I remember seeing a document from Ontario with hundreds of uses just in those province. Fourth, I look at AI and the courts, and how AI will affect the judicial system, used by judges, by administrators, and by lawyers. And finally, AI and citizens, how the technology can be used to help citizens be engaged in democracy. It's a book that I've been told it's optimistic. I think that's because there's so much out there that is incredibly pessimistic, that if you're realistic, you look optimistic. I try to look at the positives and the negatives, and a lot of stories of things that are happening, some really interesting things happening around the globe, and pulling them together, I think is valuable. So we can see how different people are experimenting with this technology. For a caveat up front, AI is more than chatbots. AI is more than large language models. AI is more than generative AI. It's more than machine learning, right? The AI that gives you turn-by-turn directions is not chatting with you. The AI that reads your chest x-rays or does grammar checking when you use Grammarly. These are not generative systems. And I think the media tends to focus on these generative aspects when there's a lot more going on. So I'll give a few examples and so that we can have a conversation. It's a really neat story that came out of Japan. In the book, I write about Takahiro Ano. Last year, he ran for governor of Tokyo. He's an engineer, kind of a kid, and he comes in 5th out of 50 something, like crazy placement, basically because he had an authorized AI avatar on YouTube that answered questions from constituents over like a 2.5 week period. It was kind of amazing. And he did this. So this was a way he would engage with voters that isn't just writing a static piece of paper, delivering a speech. It is interactive with an avatar. And he captured the imagination of the voters and came in 5th. It's a cool story, but the neat thing is that just last month, he was elected to Japan's upper house, to the upper house of the Diet. And now he has a party, Team Mirai, it means Team Future. And in Japan, when you are a party, you get funds from the government to do party things. And instead of hiring poll workers, he's building tech. Like he's building tech to enable citizens to comment on legislation, and so he can modify his platform in real time based on what his constituents want. It's kind of weird. Glad he's doing it. It's a really interesting experiment in AI as sense making. And when you think of these stories, right, you always have to think about compared to what. We don't have enough. He doesn't have enough humans on staff to listen to everybody. So his only way is to aggregate, and he's using these technologies to do it. I'll give a story from Brazil. This is also, these are stories post-book. Brazil is a very litigious society, even more than the United States by a lot. They spend 1% of their GDP annually on the court system. They spend an additional 1% GDP annually paying out people who sue the government. So it's a huge cost center for Brazil. A couple of years ago, they started using AI in the courts, not to make decisions, not to be a judge, not to weigh evidence, but to do administrative things, to assign attorneys to cases, to figure out workflows, to make the system run smoother. And it did. You can see a dramatic decline in how long it takes for cases to get resolved, which sounds great. Now, what's happened this year is that attorneys are starting to use AI to file cases. So we're seeing a significant increase in the number of cases filed. So here's an example of AI giving and AI taking away. You might look at this and say, well, that's really bad. I think actually good for democracy. And I want citizens to be able to sue the government. And if AI enables more citizens to do that and those cases are resolved quicker, we can argue that that is a net win for democracy. Third thing I want to talk about, which one am I using? I'm just from California. So there is an organization called Cal Matters. They've been around for a while. They are a citizen watchdog group. What they do is they collect every public utterance of California elected officials. Every floor speech, every campaign email, every tweet, everything. They combine that with all their voting record, who funds them, so campaign contributions, lobbying records, in California lobbyists are forced to disclose who they lobby to, and they make that data available. You can go on the website and look up whichever representative you want to know about and find out who's paying them and what they're voting for and what they're saying. But they've done something different this year. They have a program called Tip Sheet, and you cannot access this. This is only accessible by journalists. They have an AI that looks through all of this data and finds anomalies, things that are weird, things that it thinks are suspicious. But it doesn't publish them because, I mean, they can make a mistake. Wait, this is AI. We don't trust it fully. But it makes it available for journalists who can follow up. So journalists can log into this platform, get a tip, and then decide whether it is worth researching, do the research, and write the story with the data provided by the system. It's a really interesting example of AI helping government oversight. So those are just 3 stories that have shown up since the book. In writing the book, we had a lot of examples of We write, well, this we think is going to happen, and then we have to box it out and say, well, this already happened in this particular country. And so there's many more stories from sort of all areas of government. Lots of countries are doing some pretty interesting things. There's a lot of bad things as well. I think of AI as a power enhancing technology. It increases your power. If you, as a person, want more democracy, AI can help you. If you, as a person, like a dictatorship, AI can help you as well. Right? I mean, AI does not make that choice. The choice is the human choice. And I think this is going to affect pretty much every aspect of society. It's, we've spent millennia with machines that enhance our physical power. We're still relatively new at machines that enhance our mental power in this way. You can argue that literacy, printing press, it's along that line. And it's hard to know how these things will shake out. So I talk a lot about AI and trust, AI and power, AI and security, AI and accuracy, right? Is this tool accurate enough? And it turns out it depends. If you're a candidate and you want to use AI to write your speeches, no one can stop you. Only person that's trusted is you. You're a candidate, you're a judge, you're a legislator. But if we're going to use it, let's say in a government application to make benefits decisions, then we all have to trust it. If it's going to make bail decisions, if it's going to make recommendations on parole, right? Those are applications where we need broad societal trust. But when we've had this happen, if a judge pulls up an AI and tries to learn the plain meaning of a term, which we know has happened, only that judge has to trust it. And yes, the AI will probably be biased, but honestly, in the US at least, the AI's law clerks are biased because that's who they hire. So always think about this in continuum. There's a lot more I can say, but I think I'll pause and let other people who've read the book say something.
That's great. Beth, do you want to go next or?
Yeah, Ron, I will make a few comments.
And by the way, I just suggested a time there, but you can take longer or shorter as you wish. Yeah.
Not longer because we're all here to talk to each other. One of the things I found incredibly helpful with Bruce's book, co-authored book, is walking through the steps of what does trustworthiness look like, and incremental building over, let's do yes for the AI on fairly simple things in terms of what the question is. Sometimes it's around, was this person speeding? But cases in which it's relatively clear how you can make an assessment, and it's relatively clear for the human in the loop in this case to be able to say that is correct. And then moving on to maybe more complex, but no questions. So building capacity. So trustworthiness is really stitched into an audit that is clear and transparent, and also the gaining of expertise in terms of human machine systems. And that example was given in a couple of different ways, and it was very helpful in terms of demystifying the noisiness around, once we say yes to involving AI in any of these capacities, we've given away everything. We've given away all agency, we've given away all authority. And this argument around how integration can be helpful for individuals, helpful for governments, and also helpful for democracy, I found quite, maybe I shouldn't say optimistic, but soothing in terms of there are pathways that are not so hard to imagine in terms of how we might get this better. And of course, we still have mountains of problems. So in the Canadian context, we're in a moment of adoption. I was part of this AI Action Summit in Paris last year in February, and I was on the floor when JD Vance shows up from the US and says, no regulation, just go, 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 because any regulation will tie us up. Now, I mean, the whole bunch of people like Russell Stewart and others who've made the clear argument that if the technology is not safe, then it won't have value. And whether we're talking about X risk or whether we're talking about hallucination, So there's a lot in between, like the quotidian problems and then the world's going to end or we'll all be enslaved problems. And I had thought earlier that my colleague Jeff Hinton at SRI and the AI doomers as such, I was like, oh, this is totally overblown. The real problems are the immediate ones in terms of misinformation and being able to augment all kinds of powers for good and for bad, for, you know, authoritarians winning elections. We've seen quite an interesting cycle in the past couple of years. But the thing that I started to think about some more, and this is maybe not totally related to democracy, is why would an assessment of risk across every level, why would that not be credible? Why would we not take that seriously in terms of building better systems? And one of the things that I think that we have to think about, and you talk about this, and you talk about this in terms of power, and certainly Ron, in your work, you've touched this. If we just have centralized big tech who are the builders, the people with whom we're doing procurement, this is not how you build instruments for a civil society. There's too much reliance and there's not enough control over what adoption looks like. And we do have some interesting moments here in terms of smaller models being more viable, national models being called for and starting to come online. We absolutely have some political will in this country around Canadian sovereignty in relationship to AI development and use, partly because of a shift in the geopolitical world. So I think anything more you want me to, you're going to recommend I bring up?
That's good. So
That was good.
no.
Okay. I read your book. Your book was good.
So I want to, something very important that we just said is we better separate what is sort of an AI issue and a capitalism issue.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not the tech, it's the monopolistic American companies that are creating the tech. It doesn't have to be obsequious. It doesn't have to be overconfident. It doesn't have to be racist. That is a choice that is made, or that's a choice not to fix by these companies. And the term we use for this non-corporate AI is public AI.
Great.
And we talk about this in the book pretty extensively. And we talk about it as something that is coming, that we want models that are not created with the profit motive for the benefit of shareholders. And the neat thing is 2 months ago, we have one, Switzerland. The model is Apertus, developed by ETH Zurich and another university, some money from the Swiss government, compute lying around from the Supercomputer Center from particle physics. And they created a core model. It is 15 trillion tokens, 70 billion parameters, about the performance of Llama 3. So it is comparable to the best model of last year. It uses no illegally taken copyrighted data. It uses no poorly paid global South labor. It is entirely public, not just the weights like Llama, but the training data, the training methodology, everything is open. It is accountable to the public. They're building right now another one. They're going to do another with more public accountability. And this is a model that is not corporate anything. And you can go online and use it right now. And I think that's amazing. Singapore is building a model called Sea Lion based on Southeast Asian languages, because those languages get short shrift in these American models. And this kind of thing is now within reach of many countries. Switzerland is not big last time I checked, right? Not a lot of people. And I think we're going to see more of these. And you're right.
Singapore's not so big either.
No, the Singapore's smaller.
And Singapore's been really, really active in using new tech for democratic purposes.
And it's what you said about smaller models that's important. I mean, I think the future is going to be these smaller, cheaper, more agile. You want a model that's a travel agent or a, investment counselor. You don't want a model that does everything. That's wasteful. So I'm excited about this.
Could I jump in with my comments? Because I think they're going to echo a lot of this anyway, and it'll lead to further discussion. So just before I say what I want to say, I want to preface it by noting a few things about Bruce and what I admire. It's all good. I've been working in this space for several decades, and from the beginning, Bruce has been an important touchstone. For those of you who don't follow closely, he's written a blog for the last, 30 years, it feels like, and more maybe, and a newsletter. And it really is.
This is him saying you're old.
Well, same age.
Okay.
So we've gone through this journey together. But Bruce is just an extraordinary resource for this entire area, technology and society. And since the very beginning, I've gone to him regularly. And his books are just so clearly written. And this is another example of it. It's like the straight goods. There's no meandering detours into stories and what's this going to lead to? It's just, here are the things. And I really appreciate that. And this book had to be written. Somebody had to write a book like this that's going to go through and address the challenges that AI presents to democracy. And I think you've done a very effective job at that. And I think this will be, for however long we're dealing with those issues, the go-to book. So kudos to you and your co-author for that. Much like Beth, though, I think I have a similar reaction, if you don't mind me saying. When I read the book, I actually came away with a feeling of sadness because I read all of this wonderful, all of the pathways that are sketched out about what we need to do to make AI the best it can be for society and for all that we aspire to. And the reason I was sad is I was looking around at the world while reading this. And, admittedly, the world that I live in is maybe prejudiced to some degree because I'm always looking at the bad things. But I think it's important to address the larger social, political, economic context within which we're seeing this like transformative technology being unleashed on society. So first of all, on the political side, demonstrably, we're going through a period of rapid democratic decline. Authoritarianism is spreading. Freedom House, which undertakes measurements of democracy using their indices, which they've done for many, many years, has recently noted 19 years of democratic decline. That goes back to 2006, which, by the way, was when Google purchased YouTube, Facebook started its news feed, and Twitter was launched. I'm not a big fan of monocausal explanations, but that's a pretty significant correlation. Something's going wrong here, okay? And if you just freeze for a minute on the authoritarian question, something that we study very closely at the Citizen Lab, we investigate the use of technology for authoritarianism, transnational repression. We're seeing it across the board. We're seeing cyber espionage. AI is now integrated across the workflow. You're familiar with this. We're seeing reports now by the dozens. Every aspect of cyber espionage that used to take a lot of manual labor, a lot of time, it's now been automated and accelerated thanks to AI. Unchecked mass surveillance. That's another part of the AI equation here. People are being put under a microscope like never before. And what this enables is micro surveillance at a mass scale. I mean, right down to the level of your innermost thoughts and desires with agentic AI is now going to be available for systems of control. And that's a very scary prospect to me. All you need to do is look at contracts in the United States right now for ICE and DHS and look at the companies that are providing them with AI-enhanced forms of targeted and mass surveillance. That is something that should alarm everybody. And then there's AI and influence operations or psychological operations. The last report the Citizen Lab just published was about an IDF operation. Doesn't matter what topic it is or whatever case, every single world event now is flooded with AI-enabled disinformation that is a combination of just random things out there, but more substantially, governments purchasing what I call dark PR services from a highly unregulated AI infused industry of psychological operations, mostly made up by veterans of intelligence agencies who specialize in it. That's one context, the authoritarian context within all of this is happening. The other, of course, is we're living in a time of massive wealth inequality and disparity that's getting far worse. Arguably the worst in human history, although it's hard to measure, but certainly the worst in the last 200 years. Elon Musk is getting a bonus now. He's going to be, what, a trillionaire? What does that even mean? This is, and then we're introducing a technology that is going to eliminate scores of jobs and put people out on the street. I was just on my way back from Malaysia, dropped into Vancouver. Has anyone looked at the situation of homelessness in Vancouver and Toronto? I mean, this is dystopic stuff that we're dealing with, and AI is going to, by all accounts, exacerbate those inequalities in the short term. And that's the environment within which this is being rolled out. Third, which is one critique I have of the book, I didn't notice a lot of mention of the huge energy consumption around AI. Obviously, I mean, I guess I'm one of the few people, unfortunately, that still thinks the climate crisis is a pretty serious existential crisis. Fewer and fewer people do these days, especially those in positions of control. What the hell is it? I mean, look at the studies of how much each AI prompt consumes in terms of water, energy. The fossil fuel companies, they're having a field day getting into this area. This is disastrous for the human species. And that's the context within which it's happening. Surveillance capitalism, you already mentioned. It's important to underline that this technology isn't being rolled out at a time of like Keynesian welfare state economic models. No, we're in a kind of, unbridled libertarian surveillance capitalism model, which means there's going to be a huge promotion of the move fast, break things model, and using all of us as subjects. One thing I want to say about that, I find it remarkable that when you look at something like ChatGPT, that something so powerful as that system, which people are using quite understandably for things like human counseling, therapy sessions, talking about their most intimate things, how this could be rolled out experimentally on billions of people without anything so much as a license is just bananas to me. I mean, I'm sorry. Am I wrong about that? Like, so, you can't open an office and offer psychological counseling without some kind of accreditation, right? The liability would be enormous. But hey, OpenAI can roll out something online for free and people use it for counseling. And guess what? That's your problem. Okay. And we know that there are huge repercussions of that. People are actually taking their lives because of the prompts that they're being given. And then lastly, we live at a time of deep racism, institutional prejudices, which AI, and you do nod at this several times in the book, is only going to deepen and amplify. We see this obviously in the prejudices around predictive policing. That's been well documented. So this is just going to explode all of that. So the context around all of this is very important to appreciate. And I think that's something that we need to reflect on collectively. And then there's the issue of, what are the conditions that would make AI socially beneficial? And really what it boils down to is not something technologically specific. Right. It's something that's time immemorial, let's say. It's about restraining humanity's worst impulses and trying to come up with a system that we can all agree on that has checks and balances and forms of restraint. Talk about oversight, we talk about auditing, public AI. All of those things are, in ideal terms, exactly the sorts of things that humans have struggled over for centuries. So you could substitute AI for another technology. It still boils down to the human condition, right? And that's the really tough challenge, I think, for all of this. last thing I want to say is about the rush to embrace AI that I see going on right now, which is, not surprising in a way because it's so fascinating. We are living in these times of because of surveillance capitalism, the way technologies get rolled out, there's a kind of enthusiasm for it, but also there's an addictive quality to it that I think we need to frankly address. That technology is designed to be addictive so that people are compelled to use it so they can be subject to surveillance for business purposes. And that explains a lot why people are rushing to embrace this. I just want to say one last thing along these lines about our Canada's AI minister. Is it Minister for AI and Innovation, who is put out a 30-day call for this task force, which is absurd, of course. No one can go for it. But I think more problematic.
You could use AI to make your task force faster.
Yeah, we could do, of course. Yeah, well, he's using AI, and this is the disturbing point. By his own admission, he's saying, oh, I consulted ChatGPT about this piece of legislation. It gave me a summary, and then I put it on the Google thing that makes a podcast, and I listened to that on my drive to work. I mean, it's just so pathetic.
You should hire a better class of politician.
And then Canada has now entered into an agreement with the UAE for a partnership, many billions of dollars coming. I get all the realpolitik justifications for this, but honestly, this is horrific to see that type of agreement being made around this technology. Oh, and guess what? And energy, AI and energy. Okay, this is all bad. This is all bad. I'm sorry, I just got off a plane from Malaysia. I'm a bit jet lagged, but I'm in a bad mood about a lot of this.
Yeah, but I think,
Those are my comments.
I think Bruce there's advocacy there for citizens stepping up to a higher level of agency, and also for governments, democratic governments, behaving better. And the points that you've made, just like, well, I guess they didn't get the brief, but this idea that, one, if this technology is smart, why can't we train the technology on solving its own problems in terms of, if indeed smaller models are possible, let's spend some real time and resources on thinking about energetically what this costs. And the idea that it doesn't have to replicate all of the terrible design of social media. We've lived through this for 20 years. We know exactly what the problems are. We know what the addictive design is. We know what the extraction is. And this, AI is built partly because we have had social media, so we do have the big data, et cetera, but it does not have to replicate that same trajectory. The technology doesn't behave in the same way. So I'm just a little bit of a silver lining,
if I just in response to that, I understand that. I only wish it were true, is what I'm saying. Like, if only we could build it that way. Sure, if only, but it's highly unlikely that it's going to be built that way. The constraints against it right now, given the current conditions of the world, are enormous. And that's what concerns me.
So I'm concerned about that as well. I actually had a piece in Lawfare on basically lessons AI should learn from our failure to regulate social media. And I talk about, all the problems social media has brought us, basically the fact that it is designed for addiction because it's designed to manipulate you. And so, if the goal of Facebook was to get you to buy another year of Facebook, it might only make you watch it once a month. As long as you are happy, that's all they want. It's like the Apple products. They don't spy on you, they're just overpriced. Right? So the goal is that you're happy with an Apple product, not that you use it a lot. So we've built this ecosystem on surveillance and manipulation. And I think AI is going to hypercharge that. You're going to be more intimate with it than with your Facebook or your phone or your email or anything else. And that is worrisome. But again, we want to separate the technology from the politics. And I think the politics are actually in a bad direction, right? The US is not regulating. There's this arms race metaphor, which I think is complete bullshit. Like, we are not in the 1960s. This is not the way tech works. Things moving in a good direction are that these models are getting smaller and cheaper. I mean, I know someone who's running DeepSeek, the Chinese model, on their phone. The companies are building these massive power infrastructures, anticipating this use of this highly energy inefficient AI that I don't think is going to come to pass. I think these smaller, cheaper models will run on your computers. You're going to run them locally, and they're not going to have this energy footprint. I mean, right now, if you use AI today, it was probably not because you wanted to, because you did a Google search and it was shoved down your throat. Why? Then that is a business choice to burn energy using AI that you didn't ask for. You limit it to things people ask for. Suddenly, it's a lot more energy efficient. I think we are going to see a lot of efficiencies come. It's not going to make the problem go away, but it's not going to be nearly as bad. I think the U.S. is completely overbuilding on energy, and there's going to be a huge crash because that's not what is wanted by people. That is not what's profitable. It's not a good business decision. So I think the waste is going to be there, but it's going to be wasted. The other thing to add to environmental concerns is the rare minerals. We actually don't need the newest chip every year. Remember Apertis, the Swiss model? They used chips from a few years ago because that's what they had. And they made a model competitive with last year's best. Right? We actually no longer need to keep buying new chips. So there is this race for these incremental improvements. But that is not necessary. I think Ron's right that this is the world we have, that we're not going to have a responsible US in this, which is going to pull the world in a bad direction. But my hope is that the efficiencies of the technology are going to democratize it. If the Swiss model is reproduced by half a dozen countries, and it easily can, suddenly these big behemoths no longer have a lock on the technology. And they're not going to be as energy intensive, either in chips or in water or in power or in anything. That's my hope. Might not go that way, might go the other way.
Do you think, Bruce, there's a parallel to be drawn between, I feel like the very similar arguments were made at the beginning of the social media age around surveillance capitalism. There are a lot of people who are hopeful that there would be public models of social media, and people actually design them. So you had little Switzerland-like experiments, right? They didn't take off.
I mean, they took off, but they were killed. I mean, and this is a failure of U.S. regulation. We let the monopolies get too big. We let companies use anti-circumvention law to prevent interoperability. So you couldn't build. So when Cory Doctorow tells the story all the time, when Facebook appears, MySpace is the social network of choice. What Facebook does is they know they can't get people to move. So they say, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. Join Facebook. When you post on Facebook, we will post it on your MySpace account because you'll give us your password. When someone comments on MySpace, we'll bring it into Facebook. So you can be on Facebook and not lose anything from MySpace. They gave people a path to migrate. Once they did that successfully, they pulled the ladder up from under them. Right? They have lobbied, and it is now an illegal business model. And no one else can do that to Facebook. And that is a business choice. Cory is Canadian, and he keeps telling Canadians that they should resist this U.S. anti-circumvention law, which you people did pass in some weird way when fresh from the U.S., and become a country where you can do these kinds of things. And that will do an enormous amount of good, pretty much all across big tech, because these monopolies don't have to stand. And adversarial interoperability, the fact that you can, if you own a car, put any brand of gas into the tank and no one can stop you, is really important. And if you were tied to one brand of gas, it'd be a very different auto ecosystem. So there are ways to think about it. I'm not optimistic about the US. I'm optimistic about the EU. They are the regulatory superpower on the planet. The EU AI Act was passed last year. It's come into force next year, unless it's delayed out of US pressure. I mean, it's not perfect, but at least they're freaking trying.
Tell us a bit more about that.
All right, so the EU AI Act is worth talking about, and it's a comprehensive law. So the EU has been passing a whole series of laws trying to regulate the internet. We had GDPR, maybe about 10 years ago now, on data privacy. Recently, we've had the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act, and these both deal with competition and ways that these products and services can operate on the internet. And then we have the AI Act. It tries to regulate the technology broadly. It sets up different tiers of uses, right? The regulations, if it is a children's toy, will be different than it's a medical device. Although, you know, the children's toy was pulled off the market recently because it recommends BDSM activities to children. It turns out not to be okay. So maybe they're wrong about that. But it sets up these comprehensive regulations on what the model should do. The only thing I don't really dislike about it is it regulates the tech more than the humans. To me, any regulation needs to target the humans. If we think that, I don't know, AI generated political ads are bad, we should also think those ads are bad if they're generated with actors and a soundstage. It actually doesn't matter how they are generated. We should decide if we want, you know, demonstrably, deliberately fake political ads. In the US, they will be allowed. We have very extreme free speech laws. Other countries will make different decisions, but that's the decision. It's not about how the tech works. It's about the outcome. I mean, if a police department is racist, I don't care if they use AI or not. It can't be racist.
But can we turn it around and look at the recent legislation in California?
Yes, yes.
Because unfortunately, we have the opposite example, and it's terrible. So, Ron, you talked about, you know, you've got kids using these LLMs, and they're heartbroken, this and that, and we're seeing bad outcomes. And the decision in California was to say, well, we just have to make sure that if you're underage, you can access the LLM, as opposed to addressing anything around what is reasonable and what actually needs to be controlled around what kind of recommendations it can give. So, I mean, in both cases, there are different kinds of problems. It's interesting in the EU AI Act that there are certain cases where it's forbidden to use AI. It has to do with refugees, it has to do with borders, it has to do with highly contested and at-risk people. So you're like, okay, so that seems, I mean, it's the opposite of ICE.
Right.
This is literally the opposite of ICE. But I'm not disagreeing, but we're also saying, well, if we're doing more control over the people, I think part of what you're saying is, who are the authors of these things? Who are the people giving the prompts and setting it in motion? That's where some of the accountability you think should happen.
Yeah, California is an interesting state to watch. They're the state in the US that is most regulating AI. There are a good dozen laws. And you know, there is a movement, it comes and goes, where the US would pass a law basically preventing states from regulating AI. The tech companies really want this because they know that the states are harder to control than the US federal government. I think this goes on sort of both parties, California, New York regulating AI, but so does Florida. Ron DeSantis wants to regulate AI. So we're hopeful this goes away. My guess is this will come back again. We got to beat it down each time. But that is very much United States work to make sure that the states have the ability to protect their citizens. I mean, in the United States, a lot of safety regulations happen at the state level. That, automobile regulations happen at the state level. So it's a good place for it. And it's a place to experiment. In the United States, states can do very different things and we can figure out what works. So, I like seeing that. I worry about laws that are slow. I mean, it's a general problem I think we have to solve, that tech moves faster than law. We need to figure out how to be agile. In general, we have two ways that a law is agile. The courts are generally more agile than legislators, and government agencies, which can often do rulemaking faster. In the United States, that was hamstrung recently by the Supreme Court. but other countries have, better and more agile regulatory power. One of the neat things about the EU AI Act is they build in this system of of update, because they recognize that anything they write, they started writing the law pre-ChatGPT, which was kind of a shock as they're going to be almost finished, and suddenly this new technology appears and everything is different. But I think we have to get used to that in tech policy.
Can I ask another question, Bruce? About the aspirational parts of the book, I think it depends on there being a properly functioning public sphere.
It's
where people
only so much I can do.
Follow me down the path.
Okay.
And I think we all have to acknowledge that right now the public sphere is in a bad place. And when I think about AI and social media, obviously, as contributing factors to why it is a bad place, I only see downsides there. And part of it has to do with the way, so, there are these exceptions, a few public AI models out there that don't feed on copyrighted work or whatever, but the vast majority of what people are consuming is at risk of garbage feeding upon itself, right? There's a lot of slop out there, and the AI is training on the slop, and it's amplified.
So there's theory about this.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So there's a paper out of University of Cambridge that AI that trains on its own output gets worse. So imagine you have a music AI, you train it on the world's great music, and you get an AI that produces Mozart.
Yeah.
You train it on the output and you get Salieri. Right? You train it on the output and you get garbage.
Reddit.
Right. So AI that is trained on AI output is demonstrably less quality. What's interesting is this means that any data sources that are guaranteed human are now much more valuable. It's like Reddit before, I don't know, whatever the year is, 2022, is more valuable because it is guaranteed human. Right? Books written before ChatGPT, speeches given before. And so that, okay, we know that, that's good. It's ossifying. I mean, your point about the structural racism, it's just because it's trained on us and we're terrible, right? I mean, it's trained on Reddit. What do you expect?
But also it's trained on the past.
Right, that's right. It's right. Trained on the past.
So if you talk about predictive models, I mean, you make this point, predictive models that are just like, what does, gay rights look like in 2025, and your corpus is from 1950. Well, it doesn't look like anything at all. So there's model collapse is a phenomenon you're talking about, an AI slop, and that is, certainly Anthropic and ChatGPT are not training on their own corpus because they're expensive, and they're also advocating. I mean, one of the wish list from President Trump was just end copyright. Because if we have pristine data, we will win this arms race. Like that was a request that was put in within, I think, the first 10 days of the overall. So there's that in terms of, it's quite right in terms of what the value of clean quality data is. And since all the books, all the PDFs have already been read, did you file for your $3,000?
I did. I had more than one book, so I had more.
Of course. You're like, I'm going to go on vacation. Thank you, Anthropic. But
so people know this is a settlement.
So Anthropic lost the case, and now any author who finds their book or books in the database, they can file for $3,000 USD. So take a look. But there's not just one model, and there's just not just a singular way to make this stuff. And model collapse is a real phenomenon, and slop in, slop out, and it can't eat its own tail. And yet we have really incredibly designed, pristine phenomenon like AlphaFold, where it's solving a problem around protein folding that chemists are interested in. And what it's doing is learning from the small set of highly, really pristine data, and then doing some extrapolation in a really carefully designed way. And you have this space of discovery. You have new knowledge. You don't have imitation. You don't have repetition. You don't have slop. I mean, there are questions about how those proteins are then experimentally tested in the world, because there's still predictions, which we have to keep in mind. These are still predictive models. And I mean, that's not how general purpose, private companies, but public usage of AI is being designed or used.
And this is important. So this protein folding AI is not generative. This is a predictive AI. And it basically won a Nobel Prize this year. And really because it can keep more variables in mind than a human can. So it can operate at a data complexity level that is above humans. So it was able to solve, these are effectively math problems at a sophistication that humans can't. I think this is incredibly promising. I mean, this is not something that is going to create, an image or make some bad text. This is what it does is protein folding. If you like protein folding, it does it. If you don't, go somewhere else. It's all it does. And there are these specialized AI prediction systems, whether they're weather prediction or they're going to, analyze your chest X-rays, or they are going to give you turn-by-turn directions to tell you how to get to where you're going, or they're going to tell you what you're going to see next on TikTok that'll make you stay because it pisses you off, right? I mean, it's all the same thing, but these predictive AIs, I think, are going to be, they're powerful and useful in many narrow circumstances, and they're all unique.
So, but how can people understand better what it is that it does and what it is that they can do? Because there's a problem in terms of it's noisy, it feels complicated. And in some ways, like everyone's had the experience where you type something in and sometimes you get interesting information, and one of them is not how much water did that just cost. If you ask that, it won't tell you.
It's just hard. I think we need to teach AI literacy. I mean, especially in a school here. I mean, I'm sure many students are using it, and there are ways to use it well. There are ways to use it poorly. I think we know that AI will feed back, right? The generative AI systems we use, the chatbots, this is not the science, this is how they're designed. They're designed basically to make you leave happy, right? So they're not going to say, I don't know. They're going to give you an answer. They'll be overconfident. And they're going to reflect back what you tell them, because that'll make you happy. It'll make you go away happy. So if you're a student, I mean, students have this experience where they're writing a paper, they have no idea what they're saying, right? And you start writing and you write, eventually you figure it out near the end. When you get to the end, you write to the beginning again, because now you know what you're going to say. And I think students confuse, I'm not sure how to say what I think with, I don't know what I think. But if you say, I don't know how to say what I think, and you go to the generative AI system, and you type in a bunch of random ideas you had, it'll give you back a coherent essay that magnifies what you think you might think. I mean, it short circuits that process of you figuring it out. And it does it in a way that is confident. And you get back, wow, I had some really good ideas. Look how well this explained my ideas. And in fact, it didn't do that at all. But that's your feeling. And I really do worry about this being used by students because of that feedback loop. It is actually really good for ideation. And if you have to know how to prompt it. And I don't know, I don't think we can stop using it. We can put in syllabi, you can't use it, and no one's going to listen.
But you have to know how to do something.
Right.
So I'm talking to some adults whose kid is 10 and they say, so what do you think? I'm just like, does your kid know how to write an essay? No.
No.
So the thing is, ChatGPT, you will then miss that learning moment because you will never learn how to write an essay. And it's not easy. It's not necessarily fun, or do some math. So the idea of like, okay, replace this, replace that. Then, I mean, we've talked about this in terms of then you get generational deficit across a lot of different spaces in terms of whole bunches of things that your brain doesn't know how to do, and also the social relations of doing them. And this is an economic issue as well in terms of law firms, they don't have to hire 22-year-olds. They can just be like, well, here's the LexisNexis AI buildup. And that's not a joke. That's a real thing. That's
right.
business, obviously. But then what happens?
I talk about this, and this is basically any apprentice-based profession. Doctors, lawyers, architects, investment counselors, right? Where you start at a lower level and work up to senior partner. Assistant professors, right? If AIs are doing most of the work, not even all of it, 50%, 80% of the work at this lower level, where do the newly trained humans go to get the skills they need to be the highly trained humans?
They'll end up on the downtown east
We
side.
need to
Streets of Vancouver.
rethink.
They go to the streets of Vancouver.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
But
it's horrible.
we need to rethink all of these apprentice-based professions and how they work, because they're not going to work the same way.
But that's not an AI problem.
It's not an AI problem. This is a society
That's
problem.
an economic issue. It's a political will issue.
It's totally.
There's someone in the US who collects all the instances of AIs making mistakes in legal filings. So lots of examples of attorneys turning to AIs to write a brief, and it makes up cases, makes up things. It turns out most of those examples come from people representing themselves, not from attorneys. So it turns out that's an access to justice problem, not an AI problem.
So we should get in questions from the
Right.
audience. I think there's somebody gonna come around a magic wall here with a computer for me, because we have an online audience with. See, that was my prompt. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, thank you. So we have some questions here, and we have some questions in the audience, so I'll go over there first. Maybe say your name.
I'm Lily, nice to meet you. Thank you for this talk. It was very interesting and meaningful, and I think the topic is also very significant in today's age. But my question is gonna be a bit long, maybe two. But I feel like there is too much focus on the positive sides of AI, maybe over focusing it. And I feel
I
like
think there's no focus on it.
there's like the dangers of it are kind of pushed to the side. You were talking about trustworthiness, and like who are we talking about? Is it the AI itself? Is it the enforcers? Is it the users? When we talk about users, people don't really know how to use it. Are we going to train them, and how likely are they to really be trained on that? When we talk about enforcers and training of it, data is not perfect, it's biased. Even when we talk about policies and crimes, eliminating crimes, we're not talking about bringing them down to zero, right? We are talking about reducing it. So I think there is too much expectation on, we look at the dangers, but we set an expectation, oh, we are gonna fix that. Well, I think that's not really realistic. And we're pushing into those dangers, knowing it's dangerous, but we're expecting and hoping that we are gonna fix it, knowing realistically, it's not something we can fix. So that question is, why is that tendency? Why do we tend to expect something that is not really to be expected? Is it something psychological? We cannot really fix the bad side, so let's focus on the good sides. What's that tendency?
So I think it depends on where you're swimming. Where I swim, everybody's downsides. There's no upside people. I mean, we live in the downside world. So
I definitely do.
So I think different people will have different expectations. Certainly, the companies are all positive because I mean that's where their valuation comes from. So it's in their economic interest to hype the hype. I mean, I think you're right, and we don't know about how a lot of these will shake out. I think a lot about trustworthy AI and what it means for an AI to be trustworthy, and it's a super complicated concept. And I don't think we are anywhere near there yet. I do talk about that, but sometimes that doesn't matter. Right? If a candidate uses it, just they have to trust it, and it doesn't matter what you think. This is all I think going to shake out in various dimensions. We as traditionally, Ron will know this, we are terrible at designing secure systems, trustworthy systems, and we all use them anyway because we're kind of dumb. But that's what we do. You want to give the mic to somebody else?
Can I ask?
No, somebody else.
So there's at the very back of the room.
Hi, thank you. I'm Martin. I was just going to ask about kind of political sentiment and the effects of AI on political sentiment. And there's been a lot of mystification around kind of like the power of AI in especially like the social media sphere. And my question to you is whether are we focusing on the wrong thing? Because like especially with like the possible effects of AI on like the general public's view on certain political movements, for example, the problem is not really the AI. The AI is just volume. The problem is the content moderation algorithm that dictates how this content is distributed. No, and I don't know. It seems to me that the AI just serves as a political tool to distract everyone from the real problem that is these completely uncontrolled algorithms are dictating what I consume, what you consume, what everyone consumes, and inherently dictates our political views in this world.
I think that's 100% right. I mean, yes, right. It is not that the meme is AI generated. It's that the algorithm decided to show it to you. And whether it's a human meme or an AI meme, it's really interesting. You know that Twitter X recently revealed where accounts are from. And what we learned is, what?
There are lots of errors.
Yeah. But so what we learned is there are an enormous number of US propaganda accounts that come from Thailand and random third world countries, because it turns out that you can make a little bit of money with a popular account on social media. Not a lot of money. Depending on where you live, it's a little bit of money. So the good article to read, I forget who wrote it, but it's like Destroying American Democracy is the World's Side Hustle. That there are a lot of people who just couldn't care less about politics in any direction, but they know if they write, divisive content, it gets promoted and they make a couple $100 every month, which is good money for them. And so it's in the end, and yes, AI is helping them, but it's right. It's not the AI. This is totally a blame capitalism problem.
But it's the algorithm, but it's also in aggregate, the noisy system.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes.
Because then we have the truthiness problem of so many pictures. Maybe I'll just go with the kind of Pope in the puffer coat and just leave it at that, because you're like, how do I know? And then like the technical solutions of we're going to earmark AI generated content. Does that seem at all?
No.
I mean, technically, I mean, I looked at, somebody showed me last night, like, well, it will give the provenance from like what camera it was taken on, what filters were used, and you'll be able to go through all that stuff. And it just seems maybe you could do that, but it seems unlikely that solves a problem of like public and information.
It always seems to me that the people who need the authentication won't believe it. The people who would believe it don't need it. So I've got a mismatch.
I actually think I agree with the line of conversation here, but maybe quibble a bit about the importance of AI. I think there's a point at which, and you got at this, Beth, the quantity becomes a qualitative difference. And it's certainly made a lot of things a lot easier to do that before required a lot of manual labor. I want to give one anecdote. So at the Citizen Lab, we have an inquiries email, and we get a lot of queries from people that I'll just say troubled in certain ways, paranoid, looking for us to help them, and it's inappropriate or we can't. Those used to be easily discernible because they were written in a particular way, and you could go, okay, I know what this is, I'm just going to park this. Now we're getting a huge flood of clearly AI generated text. It's got all of the hallmarks, and it makes it harder for us to distinguish, actually, is this real or not? So something that looks very authentic with 27 pages of detailed explanations of what they're going through. I'm thinking like, wow, this is like a huge shift. And that's just what we're experiencing. And it dawned on me, are helplines in all different institutions experiencing what we're experiencing? And what is this going to do to gum up the system that we live in?
All right, so I have a story to tell. I don't get these nearly as often, but I do get people who write me about that they're being spied on through their through their hats, and I mean, obviously people who are troubled. So I got someone who emailed me with his story, and he said I went on ChatGPT, it validated all my suspicions, and it told me to contact you.
Exactly. We get that all
And he
the time.
sent me the transcript, and I looked at it, and God damn it, it did.
Yeah.
Way at the end, who should I contact for help? And it lists my name.
And your email.
And I don't remember if it did that, but my email is easy to find.
It's true.
Like, I know, right?
So we're gonna go to an online question
All right.
now, and then we'll go back to the audience. So there's one from Adrian Lau, who asks, what should a first-year university student do in the face of all of this to hopefully, come up with some kind of meaningful, hopeful change to what looks like a pretty dire situation?
Wow. Do you have any advice?
Start a startup?
No, that's a bad.
Oh,
advice.
you're saying start. Look for some venture capital.
Look
Okay,
for some
you got your
VC.
answer, Adrian. Start a chat GPT.
I don't think students should avoid these tools. They're going to be around for the rest of their life. You have to learn how to engage with them. But you do have to learn the limitations, which will change. Like through your career, because they have in the past 4 years, what these can and can't do. They're going to change in the next 4 years. But just know that when you're assigned a freshman English essay, it's not because the world needs more freshman English essays. Like we've got enough, right? The point isn't for you to produce one, and you produce one faster doesn't help anybody. The point is for you to go through the process of creating one. That's actually the assignment. The output is just the old way we used to judge it. And you have to know that. And this is going to be hard because there's going to be an arms race because the people around you are going to use it and they're going to get their homework done faster and it's going to look more professional and they might even get higher grades and that's going to piss you off. And it should. But I see no way around it. I don't know. You teach also. What are you doing?
That's a hard sell, Bruce. You're
Go.
just like, they're going to get better grades and their work is going to look better. So I remember reading Ethan Mollick, who's a professor at the Wharton Business School. And he made an argument that if you don't use LLM to write letters of recommendation, you're doing a disservice to the people who you're writing about.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is the arms race, right?
Yeah. And I thought about it and I thought, how can he say that seriously? Because of course, a letter of recommendation, whether it's for university or a job, it has to have all the hallmarks of authenticity. You know the person, you're deeply invested in their work because how many letters are they going to get? And if they all sound the same, it does no good. And his argument as, a fairly expert user in a particular space was, it makes it better. So I thought about that. I also tested it out in terms of, should I not say this into a recording?
We are recording.
Like writing letters and then putting in some different aspects and having letters kind of like produced.
Oh, you're allowed to test that. That's fine.
And seeing like, so what is happening here? And the test was about where can this help make this better? And where can I have certain kinds of like summaries, like here's the title of the job that you had, or just like things that are like, here's a piece of information it could get just tucked in there. I don't have to type it. So, but just thinking about where is there good augmentation, and you make a sustained argument around the augmentation, but you're also absolutely addressing first year students saying, if you just automate, that's not augmentation.
That's right. I mean, like, should you take performance enhancing drugs? I mean, it's the same. It's the same kind of question.
That's a yes.
No, but it makes it hard. It's hard when we can't police those who use the assistive tools, and I think we are going to see arms race, and we're seeing them in many cases. Right? People are using AI to write resumes and cover letters. And they are applying to way more jobs, which means the employers have no choice but to use AI to start culling resumes because they're getting too many.
Right.
I read last week, the Premier AI conference has a problem that the reviewers of the AI papers are using AI to review the papers.
Which are AI.
Right? So more papers, AI review. I mean,
right.
it's like AI talking to AI. Right, remember my story from Brazil, right? The courts are using AI, and now the attorneys are using AI. I was in Washington DC talking to legislative staffs 2 weeks ago, and they are getting more letters from constituents, obviously
Yeah.
AI written, some not obviously AI written,
Yeah.
and they said, can we have AI tools to help us triage all these letters we're getting? So these individual uses of the technology, whether it's recognitions or anything else, is amping the volume, forcing the other side to deploy tech just to break even. And these are happening everywhere, right? And I mean, like professors are going to use AI to grade your papers because you're writing too many damn papers.
But the productivity gap that this is supposed to, I mean, the Canadian government says productivity gap. And you just told a story that you're like, well, there's definitely more producing happening. But is this what we mean
But it's
by
not good producing.
closing a productivity gap? And it's not.
Right.
It's creating it. So we got time for just a couple more questions. So I'm going to go here and there and there. If you could go one by one, just give your questions and then we'll try to address them.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Philip Mai. I run one of the research lab here in Toronto at the Social Media Lab. We just released a report on how Canadians are using AI, and 2/3 are and have tried it. So earlier, Bruce, when you started this conversation, you mentioned public AI and how that could be a ray of sunshine or hope. But then we kind of went sideways. So I was wondering if you can go a little bit more details about how and what are the conditions that is necessary to give public AI a chance before capitalism just consumes it.
Don't answer it yet. Right behind it.
You optimist, you.
Okay, my question kind of builds on that. So I have a question about like accessibility, and we talked a little bit about AI literacy, and there's been like my background is in engineering, and I feel like tech has a problem making this information accessible. If we think about like other campaigns, like how to privacy and like how to be safe and secure online or on social media literacy. So like how can we, if we're going to go this route of like AI literacy, how can we tackle that or make that more accessible or more successful?
Good. And then just here, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to cut it at 3, so you can talk to Bruce afterwards.
I'm not going anywhere.
Just a quick question about what you, the three of you, think whether the Canadian government, the people in Canadian government can manage what you've been talking about. You've, you're talking about rewiring democracy. Well, the laws have to come from somewhere, and it's the people we elect. And I don't have confidence myself that, the minister that was referred to here, fine journalist, but I don't know if he knows enough to solve the problem. And I'm just wondering about your confidence in government to do something.
So just, and I'll be able to answer an online question very easily. The question was, who are the other 2 panelists? Beth Coleman and Ron Deaver.
Okay, you missed the beginning.
You stole our thunder. So over to you.
All right, I'll start. So as the American on the panel, I'm not going to answer the Canadian question because I actually don't know. So I think public AI is a movement that is growing. When we writing it about in the book, it was more aspirational than real. And since then, we are seeing more non-corporate AI models. And my hope is as this technology becomes cheaper, it is naturally democratizing. That if this is within reach, it's certainly within reach of Canada. I mean, if Switzerland can do it, Canada can do it. And right now, OpenAI is dangling, I don't know, giving you like a license and an instance to use in Canada. Say no, that's not a good, it's not a good offer, right? Build one yourself because you can do it. Right now, if you go on Hugging Face, which is where the public domain models are, there are over 2 million models on there. Now, a lot of them are small. A bunch of them are, built on top of Llama. They're not true public, but they're all non-corporate. So it is a big movement right now. I think there's a Google Public AI, and you'll see a couple of organizations that are supporting it. So what can be done? I'm hoping that comes naturally. Accessibility, I think, is a really important thing. If AI is used as assistive tech, I am all for it. Right now, there is no excuse for any government not to offer all services in every language of their citizens. And language translation is an easy win that AI does really quite well. Moti in India uses AI to translate his speeches in real time to the 20+ native languages. That's amazing. And we should all do that. If AI makes you a better letter writer to your legislator, that's fantastic. If it gives you a voice, if it can help you understand what's going on and make you a better citizen, that's great. Right? I mean, I want that, but I don't want the astroturfing, right? I mean, I want it to be assistive to the human to be a better citizen, a better person, a better whatever they want to be. It's hard to get one without the other, and it probably can't. But I want it to be a good assistive tech, and I don't want you to have specialized knowledge to have to use it. And I want you to be able to be like driving a car or something. Like you learn some stuff, you don't have to know how the engine works, like. And you don't, and that's okay. I mean, I flew here this morning. I have no freaking clue why that airplane flew. I mean, I sort of know Bernoulli's equation, but like I couldn't tell you. But it doesn't. I don't have to know.
Excellent. Beth, do you have any?
Yeah,
final?
but with airplanes, there's a whole set of regulations.
Right.
There's
exactly
a system
right.
check that it's not exotic. Every single plane gets that check, and there's practice. Mistakes were made, learning happened, but now it's a organized, it's a concerted effort, and we have to imagine we can do this with technology systems that are as complex as some of the AI systems. And the point that we don't need to know its inner thinking, what in its heart it really believes. What we need to know better are what are the outputs.
That's right.
How reliable are those outputs? Like, we can work with the things that are going out. I think that we're a little bit over-indexed on the training data. I think actually we need to work more on, well, what are we getting out of it? So in terms of public AI, there was a moment when Sidewalk Labs, which is an Alphabet funded group, this was Google's city group, and it was IoT. They came to Toronto, they were given the keys to the city, and they're like, the prime minister at the time was like, come do things in our biggest grand city. And the citizens organized and said, you want our data? You want our health data? Guess what? The province runs that, the hospitals run that. There are rules around how our information is controlled and protected. And they left. So this was, maybe it's easier, like they were on the ground and they weren't like in the ether. And certainly IoT is part of the whole AI suite. That was one of the earlier rollouts in terms of what does advanced automation look like. And some of it looks like HVAC. But there are, it does. But this is a story in terms of like, it's about democracy. It's about standing up for our rights. It's about saying, we are, sovereign. This is our data. These are the rules. This is how we want this to be done.
Excellent. Okay. I've said too much. I will.
Someone has to talk about
Can
Canada.
you talk about?
I will close this way. I'll say this is an excellent book. It's so clearly written, effectively argued, and everyone who's interested in this topic should definitely buy a copy of the book. They're for sale outside. You can get Bruce to sign it, and he'll answer questions.
I'll even forge my co-author's name.
You're gonna use an auto pen?
I'm gonna use an auto pen.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you online.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.